Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show on a Monday. My classic greeting on Monday is I hope you had a good weekend. In the lockdown, what constitutes a good weekend for many people? I think the country is divided. Obviously, it's divided. One of the ways it's divided is those who are truly hurt, pained is better than hurt, pained by the suffering of people losing their jobs and incomes, and those who are preoccupied with the virus. I am more concerned about those losing their jobs than I am about the virus. I acknowledge it. And the entire left is more concerned about the virus than the people who have lost their jobs. Because they say you can't give people jobs until you conquer the virus. So when I read to you in March, Rahm Emanuel's brother, Ezekiel Emanuel, and I believe he's an epidemiologist, who said, we have to be in lockdown until the virus ends, maybe a year and a half. And I said, this man is a kook. He turns out to be a kook, but we are following kooky policies. The state of California. I have asked friends, people I respect privately, what animates Gavin Newsom, a thoroughly superficial human being? What animates him to ruin California economically? And by the way, when you say ruin something economically, we're not talking about stocks alone, which is even secondary in this regard. We're talking about home life, children able to play with children able to go to school, people to have their life savings not destroyed because people can't enter their restaurant or their store. So what animates him? And there are people who have the theory that what animates him is politics. The more that the country is suppressed, the more it is likely to vote Democrat because they blame the quality of life on Donald Trump. I don't think that is the primary issue. I think the primary issue is that people like Gavin Newsom think they don't want deaths on their record. That's what I believe. And I only came to that this weekend. And if you think that that is wrong or naive, please tell me, 1-8-PRAGER-776. There's no rational reason why I, Dennis Prager, my family, and friends, all of whom live in the LA area, cannot enter a restaurant. There is none. Therefore, you have to look for a reason. When people act irrationally, it's hard, by the way. When people are irrational, it's very difficult to find the reason. Because how do you explain irrationality? It's a difficult thing. But I do believe that the issue is, on my watch, very few Californians died. That is, or very few Michiganders died. That's what it is. It's on my watch, no one died, or very few died. So you think unbelievably well of yourself. Self-esteem is a major virtue on the left, earned or unearned. And this one is even perceived as earned. Look at how few people in California died while I was governor. That's very, very hard to change. If you believe that you are saving lives, then how can you be dissuaded? What is better or more important? Remember, Andrew Cuomo said this in the beginning. If all the things that I have done, meaning all the lockdowns, have saved one life, I will sleep well at night. Got that one, Sean? That famous Andrew Cuomo, Governor Cuomo, line from the very beginning of the lockdown. That is the animating impulse, I believe. I think there are political aspects too. Whereas Republican governors who have loved ones who are endangered as much as Democrats do, who don't want people to die, obviously under their watch, but they ask a broader picture. What is the price paid, as the president put it, and as I put it in March? Is the cure worse than the disease? You cannot lock down society for an indeterminate amount of time. You cannot. You will crush the society in ways that we will only begin to perceive later on. I will read to you some of those ways just in terms of health. So it's a very interesting question, is it not? Putting politics aside, why do left and right generally, there are always exceptions, generally react so differently? Why is that? It shows you if we can't even unite on an issue that has no inherent political aspect, namely a virus, then on what could we possibly unite? As I have said, the gap between left and right is unbridgeable. Do you have a different explanation for Gavin Newsom's shutting down of California, for Eric Garcetti's shutting down of Los Angeles, than that under my watch, very few people died? That is my theory. Not let's ruin things so that Trump is not reelected. I think that is an aspect, but I don't think it's the dominant one. See, and by the way, if the political were the dominant one, then once the election is over, you would think that would end the lockdown, which will be very interesting to see. Once there were no longer any benefits with regard to an election, then I would be proven wrong. Then really it was just cynical destruction of people's lives for political gain. But my suspicion is that it transcends that. Payam in Los Angeles, Dennis Prager, hello.
Hi, good morning, Dennis.
Hi.
It's honor, pleasure speaking with you again.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Okay.
Dennis, I wanted to share with you some exciting thing about the rallies that are going in Beverly Hills, and also a very important request about the vote to ask you as well. But first, as far as this weekend, I went there for the first time just to observe and see it. I was amazed, and I asked a lot of people questions too. There were Japanese, Vietnamese flying over with airplanes, Vietnamese for Trump. There were booths for LGBTQ for Trump. And it was very interesting. I just was observing and finding out why. So I asked the gentleman at LGBTQ, why are you supporting Trump? He said that anytime we are doing any event or anything, on the other side, we are getting just blasted with people literally fighting us and disrespect. And on this side, it's all support. I asked a gentleman that's Hispanic with his sons that were helping over there. I asked him, why are you supporting him? And his older son got literally beaten up with the leftists. And he said, you know what, that made me look into this. And I realized, you know what, this side, they're more tolerant. And
yes. Thank you. We can't get to your second point. Thank you, Pam. I watched the Beverly Hills rally for the president. And I made a comment to my wife. Virtually, I mean, you see hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and virtually everyone is smiling. I want you to compare that to any left-wing rally. Hi, this is Dennis Prager, and you know we are in a fight for our fundamental freedoms. That's why I am grateful for my friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. They are on the front lines fighting pivotal lawsuits for Americans whose freedoms are threatened, and they do it for free. That's why we're asking you to be as generous as you can by giving today so that Alliance Defending Freedom can continue to fight these lawsuits and be ready when your rights are threatened too. Give your gift now by visiting adflegal.org/Prager, and thank you for joining the fight for freedom.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
But don't voters have a right to know where you stand?
They do have a right to know where they stand, and they'll have a right to know where I stand before they vote.
So you'll come out with a clear position before Election Day?
Yes, depending on how they handle this. But look, what you should do is you got to make sure you vote. And vote for a senator who, in fact, reflects you.
People are voting now. I've already voted. He makes that point repeatedly. If George had been a real moderator, he would have pointed out, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, you always say people are already voting. So why don't those people deserve an answer right now? The answer is he doesn't want to answer it because it's radical. He's going to say yes, and he's going to fundamentally change the United States. Court packing is an assault on everything. And you just understand, the radical left got Joe Biden to sign on to court packing. I don't know if there will be enough senators. We've got to hold the Republican Senate against the possibility that Joe Biden wins. I think it's a neck and neck. 3 new polls came out this morning which tell you that. They're all North Carolina. In North Carolina, it is a tie between Biden and Trump, according to Emerson. In North Carolina, Cal Cunningham is allegedly 1 point ahead of Tom Tillis. I don't believe that after Cal Cunningham cheated on his wife and it has become a national news story and everyone in North Carolina knows about it. I don't believe that. I believe Tom Tillis is going to win. And it shows the governor up 4, the Democratic governor up 4 over the Republican governor. That is within the margin of error in my view. So North Carolina, dead heat. I think Pennsylvania's a dead heat. I think Wisconsin's a dead heat. I think this is a dead heat presidential election.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Pat is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Pat, you're on The Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
It seems to me during the Democratic primary, there was a lot of talk about not only taxing the wealthy, but something called the wealth tax. And it was my understanding that they were taxing the wealth that you had from your savings, from your assets, from your house, that kind of thing.
That's right.
At 10% a year, at every year. It's
every year.
Like a living estate tax that goes every year. Now, I haven't heard anything about that. Can you tell me what that is and if they are still trying to promote that tax? Because I think us seniors with some savings would probably not be happy about that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And certainly that did come up during the campaign. I will tell you this. The lawmakers here in the state of California are absolutely proposing a wealth tax. They want to increase the state income tax from the highest in the nation, 13.3% to 16%. And they also want to pass a wealth tax. Now, why do I mention what's going on in California? Because every dumb idea that the federal government wants to do has been tried at least twice in California. And so California is considering this. The lawmakers are all Democrats. Democrats occupy 2/3 of both chambers of the legislature here in California, plus they run the governorship. So in the unlikely event that the governor vetoed such a tax, there are enough lawmakers in both chambers to override the veto. So do I believe that if these guys get in charge, there will be something like a wealth tax? I certainly believe that because they believe that rich people don't pay enough. The average Democrat believes rich people don't pay very much in taxes, even though the top 1% pay 39.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. That's it. I'll be happy, not I'll sleep well. I'll be happy. So that's my theory. The immoral, unscientific, irrational, crushing, life-crushing lockdown as of the last week of October, going from let's not overload our hospitals to let's flatten the curve to let's have a minus number of whatever number it is of cases, as they're called. If that's the explanation, there you go. But there's another one. There's a spectacularly selfish aspect to the vast majority of people who are pro-lockdown. They can work from home. The people who are crushed cannot. Yes, that's why the upper class is for the lockdown. The middle class is not. The upper class left is a really destructive group of human beings. Really destructive. On freedom of speech, on loathing of America, and of creating vast racial tension, and the lockdown. Who supports the lockdown? Overwhelmingly, the upper class or upper middle class left. And guess what? They can work from home. But the guy who runs a restaurant cannot. Can't do a damn thing at home. Guy who owns a store cannot. The Uber driver cannot. The guys who sell refreshments outside of stadiums, they're gone. That's it. I was skirting the issue for months because I've been puzzled. How do Democratic governors rationalize a vile, destructive policy? And the answer is self-esteem and selfishness. I'm saving lives, and it doesn't do a damn thing to my income. Not a damn thing. The people who are destroyed by the lockdown are not a matter of concern to the people who want the lockdown. Are epidemiologists losing their jobs? Not really. So they have a one-dimensional view of it. Let me see the data and what is modeling, what is modeled. I think that modeled sounds close to muddled for a good reason. This is what the issue is, my dear friends. And you should remember that next time this thing happens. Ask the people who who are pro-lockdown. Have you lost your income? I've always identified leftism with selfishness, with narcissism, always. And I was a kid at Columbia. I remember thinking of it. God, these people are narcissistic. How they feel is all that matters. And now you see it in its life-crushing power. Yes, indeed. That's it. And by the way, I just want you to know that this is not even primarily a political point I'm making. I think the lockdown in Israel, where you have a conservative government, is as irrational, as destructive, as immoral as I think it is in California and other places. Or India, another right-wing government. And I believe I've spoken to an extremely, extremely intelligent Israeli friend. This man is first-class mind. And I gave him my theories in first, it wasn't, I don't think it was by phone, it was in writing, I believe. I gave him my theories as to why Israel is in this crazy lockdown, destroying middle class in Israel, just like it's being done in the United States. So I told him I had two theories. And my two theories were that the Holocaust looms very, very strongly in the Israeli consciousness. And so losing Jews hits Israelis in a very tender spot. After all, after you lose a third, one out of every three of your group, then and you're a very small group to begin with. In the whole world, there are 13 million Jews. So I think that was a factor, and I thought another factor was that the Jews tend to worship intellectuals and people with PhDs and MDs. It's a lot of people worship that. It's one of the false gods I write of in my commentary on the commandment, thou shalt not have any other gods. The worship of experts and PhDs. But he had I think, a more compelling, he didn't deny what I wrote, but he had a more compelling explanation, and it's exactly this one. He said Netanyahu was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. If Netanyahu did not have this clampdown, this lockdown in Israel, he would have been blamed for every death. So that's the issue for world leaders, not just Newsom, not just Netanyahu. And by that, again, that proves that my point is not political. It's not engendered by political interest. Leaders don't lead. They don't want to be blamed for anybody dying.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. If you're on a college campus today or have a child on campus, there's a solid chance you'll hear this. All white people are racist. You might hear this too. America is founded on white supremacy. These two sentences are not mere overheated emotion. They express an ideology called critical race theory, or CRT, which argues that race is a social construct made by white people. Just as race was once used to enslave and terrorize, so it is used today to keep America unequal, unfair, and hostile to minorities. The Trump administration just took symbolic and courageous action against CRT. It issued a memo to federal agencies calling for the end of the government's CRT racial sensitivity trainings, terming them divisive anti-American propaganda. Does America have real issues in its past? Yes. Have we made real progress that we must guard carefully? Also yes. The White House has led well here. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
The indoctrination of the American voter has been going on for a very, very long period of time. And we as Republicans, we as believers in liberty, we as conservatives should have pushed back a lot sooner, and we need to push back harder. That's why I made the Uncle Tom movie, because we also have to fight this battle at the cultural level too. Melissa, thank you so much for that. This is a crucial election. I'll tell you why. These guys get in charge. By these guys, I'm talking about Democrats, of course. Assume they take the presidency. Let's assume they take the Senate, retain control of the House. They're going to immediately get rid of the filibuster so that they can pass any budget they want on a simple majority vote. They're going to vote on whether or not to admit Washington, D.C. as a state. That gives them 2 more senators. They're going to vote on whether or not to admit Puerto Rico as a state. That gives them 2 more senators. They're going to push for a commission to study reparations, for crying out loud. They're going to raise taxes. They're going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. And those tax cuts, 80% of the benefits went through the non-top 1%. They're going to push for the legalization of the illegal aliens who are here. Amnesty. And believe me, the number of illegal aliens in America is not 11 million. That's a number that they all cite. One study by a professor from Yale, so therefore you know it must be legitimate, puts a number at between 20 and 25 million illegal aliens. That would change our voting electorate forever. That's exactly why the Democrats want to do it. Can you imagine if 11 to 20 million illegal aliens turn voters, pull the lever for the Republican Party? We wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was what the president pointed out. He wants, this is the facts. This is the fact. Democrats are blocking the last relief package that Republicans put on the table and had the backing of the White House. Over a month ago, Democrats filibustered any discussion on an eventual passage of a $300 billion package. $1,200 to desperate Americans. $400 a week unemployment. The president broke it down last night beautifully.
The problem you have is Nancy Pelosi. She couldn't care less about the worker. She couldn't care less about our people. And we should have a stimulus. And I want a stimulus. The Republicans will approve a stimulus. The problem is she doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's bad for her election. The fact is she's wrong because people know she's in our way. She's not approving it. She doesn't appreciate our people, and she doesn't appreciate at all our workers.
I'm Dennis Prager. I want to remind you there's a banner at my website for Alliance Defending Freedom. Totally understandably, we're all preoccupied with the election. However, the battle goes on for all the people who are being persecuted with regard to religious freedom, the people who take these cases to the Supreme Court for free are the people at the Alliance Defending Freedom. There's no doubt in my mind that what stops the vast majority of you who don't give is not that you don't agree with ADF. It's not that you're not generous. I know human nature. I know me. It's that it's just we procrastinate. It's totally understandable. But when you've done it, you will feel good. Because you've done good. You got to help the fighters. So please click the banner at my website, DennisPrager.com. My theory is, I think my theory is right, and it took me 6 months to come up with it. The reason for these irrational lockdowns is that leaders don't want to have death on their record. That's why it's all over the world. Look at what is being said about Donald Trump by the left. 200,000 Americans killed by Donald Trump. Yeah, had there been another to have been a Democratic president, nobody would have died. And it has to be nobody, because if 100,000 Americans died, they'd say the same thing. Donald Trump killed 100,000 Americans. If 50,000 died, Donald Trump killed 50,000 Americans. What is the U.S. 10th in per million deaths? So the leaders, and I have some sympathy for them, some, not a lot. They think first and foremost, what sounds worse on my record? A crushed economy or dead people? Dead people. Economies recover, the dead don't. That's it. That's the thinking. That's why there's very, very few leaders. Donald Trump is a leader. Yes. Tibby in Oceanside, California. Hello.
Hi, hello, Dennis. Good morning. Happy to be speaking to you again.
Thank you.
I'm calling about your remarks about Israel, and usually I agree with almost 100% of things you say. As an Israeli, I got to tell you, this one I think you got a little wrong because you're affected by the diaspora Jew or American Jewry type of thinking. Number one, Israelis have an issue with the Holocaust, which is exactly opposite of what you said. And that's very rooted in the psych. They always start their story from...
Why is it the opposite? I said the Holocaust is one of the reasons. That was
I'm saying... Yeah, and I'm disagreeing with that. I'm disagreeing with that. Go
on, explain.
Yeah, so fundamentally, Israelis start their story always with 1945, never with the opening of Buchenwald, because they kind of embarrassed with this thing. They obviously are very aware of it, but I don't think...
you don't think it plays a role? Okay, fair enough. Go on.
Yeah, and what I do think, some of the things that in America we differentiate between the left and the right, the conservative and the liberal, in Israel actually doesn't work exactly the same way because of the Judaism that comes in. The secular Jew in Israel has life above everything. That's why they can give up 1,000 terrorists for one soldier. It's just an Israeli thing. And so that's, I think, number one. It affects them even psychologically. And, you know the saying, one life. If you're an ultra-Orthodox, you've got God trumping that. So you can die for God. That's okay. And so in that case, it'll be different. But the secular Israel goes that way and puts life.
I think you're right.
Number two.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Is there a number two? Because we have a few seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Number two, Israeli hospitals, unlike American hospitals, are usually at 98.5% capacity. So, when they're concerned about overflowing hospitals, it's not like in America. This is like a serious thing in Israel. And, of course, what you just said, Bibi is concerned on his watch, which definitely...
Yeah, okay, listen, I agree with you. It was an excellent call. I will add that to the list. That's correct. The Jewish belief in the infinite value of one's soul. I want to remind you about Riduzone because it's such a terrific product. Obviously, the response has been extraordinary because they are continuing advertising for quite some time. The product is developed by doctors. It is FDA approved. It contains OEA, which is the molecule we produce to tell our brain that we are full. So you simply eat less. So go to riduzone.com, riduzone.com, 30% off, 30-day money-back guarantee, promo code Dennis, riduzone.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was what the president pointed out. He wants, this is the facts. This is the fact. Democrats are blocking the last relief package that Republicans put on the table and had the backing of the White House. Over a month ago, Democrats filibustered any discussion on an eventual passage of a $300 billion package, $1,200 to desperate Americans, $400 a week unemployment. The president broke it down last night beautifully.
The problem you have is Nancy Pelosi. She couldn't care less about the worker. She couldn't care less about our people. And we should have a stimulus. And I want a stimulus. The Republicans will approve a stimulus. The problem is she doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's bad for her election. The fact is she's wrong because people know she's in our way. She's not approving it. She doesn't appreciate our people, and she doesn't appreciate at all our workers. Nancy Pelosi, we are ready to sign and pass stimulus, but she's got to.
And of course, right away, you can hear the minor bird interrupting him. That's not a shock. I told one of my kids last night, I said, Dad, Savannah Guthrie's terrible. Well, that's not a shock. You thought she was going to do a good job and be fair? You thought an NBC Today Show host would be fair to President Trump? Don't be distracted by that. Focus on his answers.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So we have the New York Post article that I want to get right into. Biden's secret emails. Can you just tell us a little bit of background on how you were able to obtain these emails and build it out for us?
So there is just a repairman. He repairs computers, specializes in Mac, somewhere in the area where the Bidens live. And about a year and a half ago, Hunter Biden, inebriated, he was somewhat drunk, came in with 3 devices to be repaired. The gentleman recognized him only when he came up very close because he has bad eyesight. And he took the 3 devices and he said, one of them is gone. And they deconstructed it and got rid of it. He said, one of them just needs a keyboard to be attached to it. And we can see if we can run it. And he said, the third one's in bad shape, but I think I can save it. Hunter Biden, who then had identified himself, said, well, that's the important one, meaning the one that has to be repaired. So they signed up a form document which required payment, but it also had a very interesting clause in it. It said if you don't reclaim your property within 90 days of the completion of the work, the property is deemed to be abandoned. And under the law, abandoned property becomes the property of the first person who takes it. So the merchant would be the person who took it. So for 70, 80, 90 days, he was trying to reach Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden never responded. 120 days, 130 days, never responded.
Yes, everybody. Hello, Dennis Prager with you. Yeah. Howard in Skokie, Illinois. Hello.
How are you, Dennis? Good to talk to you again.
Thank you.
So I just heard as a news thing that just came across that it looks like they're going to be closing down our section area again, or region again, for the second time with no indoor seating. And I have to tell you that I know that you have a big thing on the happiness hour. It's our duty to remain happy. But at some point, you have to say, you know what? It ain't working. It's just not working. So I'd be curious to see how you try to maintain happiness through, I know it's not the happiness hour, to get through this when you have 26 different families that count on you to support them, not to mention your own personal families and their kids and grandkids and everything. So...
Well, it's a very legitimate question. So what is going to happen to your restaurant?
Well, I would say I took over the restaurant 9-10 years ago as my second career, and we probably had the most successful kosher restaurant in the area, and maybe even in the country. It was doing extremely well. And when we tried, it was a sit-down restaurant with 100 people. And eventually we had to shift it over to takeout, to do more of this and that. It's very nice if you're a pizza joint, but it doesn't work when you have a large rent and 26 people are paying everything else. You cannot shift everything over.
What you need to do,
social media.
Number one, you have to call yourself an airplane.
Yes.
Then people can sit and eat within 1 inch of each other. There's not even social distancing. The fraud, the proof of the fraud of closing restaurants is that I fly a lot now. I am 1 inch from another guy, no mask, eating. How is that allowed?
100% agree with you, but it's even worse than that, is that because our restaurant area is so large, we can actually probably sit about 50 to 55 people within the restaurant, keeping social distancing.
That's right.
Despite that, it still isn't enough.
That's
because even when we were allowed to be open, the media has made it so
yes,
untenable,
you know why? Because
so
the media are not losing their jobs. You are.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, look, like I said, I'm going to be retiring anyway.
Listen, so I'll answer your happiness question.
Yeah.
That was what you began with. I have an answer for you. You have no choice.
Well, that's one way of looking at it.
No, that's the only way to look at it. I would tell that to anyone.
What do you tell the other people you have to let go? You have to let go 25 people.
So, despicable policies by politicians have caused it. Let these people spend the rest of their lives fighting against Democrats. I have no answer for these people, but I accept if they called, I would say the same thing. In life, you have a choice of being happy or miserable. Whatever the circumstance, that is your choice. I don't know why anybody would choose miserable.
I agree. If it was 100% a choice, I agree with you.
Lincoln lost 2 children, lost his country, and his wife was manic depressive. And he said, most folks are as happy as they decide to be. And that's the way it works. It's easy to be happy. Look, a lot of people are unhappy when things are good. How many people were unhappy before the lockdown? Were all the 27 people who worked for this wonderful man, were they all happy prior to this? I'm not saying you could be happy at every moment and jubilant when terrible catastrophes occur. One of the dearest human beings in my life since high school lost his son recently. I don't expect him to walk around happy right now. I live in the same world as the rest of you. But as a general rule, that's my view. What is my choice? Get X numbers of days in life. I want to spend as many of those days on the happy side, above 5 than under 5, on the 1 to 10 scale of happiness. It's so angering. See, if the press is such a pack of nothings, of true nothings, lying, dishonest crowd, and they don't challenge these politicians. How come you can eat in an airplane within an inch of somebody without a mask, but you can't eat within 6 feet of one another in a restaurant? Did one member of the press in the United States of America ask that of any Democratic governor doing this or mayor? Maybe. If there is, I will send this person cigars or whatever would cheer their day, and I would make them the hero of the Dennis Prager show. The way they treat Democratic politicians, the obsequious level, it is like I know the Soviet Union very well. That was my field of study. It was like Soviet reporters interviewing communist leaders. That is the way it is with reporters interviewing Democratic leaders. Do you understand that? Do you understand that we are closer, that the elite of this country is closer to the Soviet Union than it is to America of 50 years ago, of all of its history? It is an amazing thing to watch this happen. You know how many emails I get from people who escaped from the Soviet Union or other communist countries. So it came to the United States. Ayaan Hirsi Ali just wrote this article. Said, she's she's truly a great woman. This great Somali woman who went to Holland and then finally to the United States. And she said, this is the country I went to for its liberty. And it's losing it. You know how many people who have come here for liberty think that way?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
The indoctrination of the American voter has been going on for a very, very long period of time. And we as Republicans, we as believers in liberty, we as conservatives should have pushed back a lot sooner. And we need to push back harder. That's why I made the Uncle Tom movie, because we also have to fight this battle at the cultural level too. Melissa, thank you so much for that. This is a crucial election. I'll tell you why. These guys get in charge. By these guys, I'm talking about Democrats, of course. Assume they take the presidency. Let's assume they take the Senate, retain control of the House. They're going to immediately get rid of the filibuster so that they can pass any budget they want on a simple majority vote. They're going to vote on whether or not to admit Washington, D.C. as a state. That gives them 2 more senators. They're going to vote on whether or not to admit Puerto Rico as a state. That gives them 2 more senators. They're going to push for a commission to study reparations, for crying out loud. They're going to raise taxes. They're going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. And those tax cuts, 80% of the benefits went through the non-top 1%. They're going to push for the legalization of the illegal aliens who are here. Amnesty. And believe me, the number of illegal aliens in America is not 11 million. That's a number that they all cite. One study by a professor from Yale, so therefore you know it must be legitimate, puts a number at between 20 and 25 million illegal aliens. That would change our voting electorate forever. That's exactly why the want to do it. Can you imagine if 11 to 20 million illegal aliens turn voters, pull the lever for the Republican Party? We wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was what the president pointed out. He wants, this is the facts. This is the fact. Democrats are blocking the last relief package that Republicans put on the table and had the backing of the White House. Over a month ago, Democrats filibustered any discussion on an eventual passage of a $300 billion package. $1,200 to desperate Americans. $400 a week unemployment. The president broke it down last night beautifully.
The problem you have is Nancy Pelosi. She couldn't care less about the worker. She couldn't care less about our people. And we should have a stimulus. And I want a stimulus. The Republicans will approve a stimulus. The problem is she doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's bad for her election. The fact is she's wrong because people know she's in our way. She's not approving it. She doesn't appreciate our people, and she doesn't appreciate at all our workers. Nancy Pelosi, we are ready to sign and pass stimulus, but she's got to.
And of course, right away, you can hear the mic.
Okay, y'all. Let's go to a doctor in Palm Harbor, Florida. Bill. Hello, Bill.
Hey, how are you doing?
Okay, thank you.
If I can indulge, we have similar backgrounds. We both studied Russian, communism, socialism, and have been to the Soviet Union, just FYI.
Fascinating.
But take an elderly demented patient. One of their connections to the real world is their family. The lockdown has taken that away from all these people. The families have not been able to visit them in their adult living facilities or nursing homes. They get sick. They go into the hospital. All these strange people with masks are coming in and out of the room. You take those people and put them in the hospital, they get confused anyway. I've personally seen 3 such cases spiral downhill and the family give up and just let them go. My wife, who's a home health nurse, has seen one similar case, and a friend of ours in healthcare in Georgia told us of another similar case. There must be thousands. The lockdown itself is killing people.
My friend, I thank you. There's a heartlessness that has taken place in this country in the medical arena that is breathtaking. I am afraid of very little, and I'm not afraid of dying. I love life. I'm crazy about it, but I'm not afraid of dying. But I don't want to die alone. I want to die with loved ones around me. To deprive people of that in the name of health? There is something sick, not in the hospitals. There is something sick in the medical profession. Not just doctors, nurses, the whole crowd. There are some obviously heroes, no question about it. But there's a ruthlessness that I never would have expected. Sorry, you will only see masked strangers for months. But, hey, we're saving lives. We're crushing yours because we're saving others. That is the attitude of the medical profession. I'm preparing an article, not for this week. My tentative title is, How Many Doctors Does It Take to Screw Up a Country? My opinion of the medical profession was never high, and I always note doctors have saved my life. I am totally indebted to them for their abilities, but doctors have as much wisdom as lawyers and taxi drivers. But there is now an ethic of, if there is any danger, it's okay to crush people's lives and have them die alone.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
The polls in our face over and over again telling us that Trump is going to get clobbered on November 3rd. The polls saying he's losing in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Florida, Wisconsin. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it, and I could be in denial, or maybe we're right, that this enthusiasm gap is dramatic. Listen to this data before we go to your calls. There have been 13 re-election events since the president got out of the hospital and returned to the campaign trail. 13. According to the data provided by the Republican Party chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, the president has attracted over 167,000 rally-goers, and a huge percentage of them aren't even Republicans. At Trump's October 17th visit in Janesville, Wisconsin, the RNC reports that 47.5% of the over 13,000 people there said they were not Republicans. At his October 14th stop in Des Moines, Iowa, she said 29.4% of the over 10,000 people were Democrats. At the first stop he made when he got out of the hospital, boy, it feels like 6 months ago, it was, just a week or two ago, he was in Sanford, Florida on October 12th. 24.4% didn't even vote in 2016, and 31.8% were not Republicans. 16.3% were Democrats. Ronna McDaniel told the Washington Examiner, the RNC and Team Trump have the largest political operation in history, built to turn out voters with surgical precision.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Kamala Harris has referred to the Black Lives Matter movement as a beautiful movement. Yeah, there's some knuckleheads. Yeah, there's some people that set fire to some things. Yeah, there's some people that shoot. But by and large, it's a beautiful movement for racial solidarity based upon a narrative, and that narrative is that the police are engaging in systemic racism against black people, that the police are killing black people because they are black people, not because they've done something bad, not because a cop reasonably thought that this black person was posing a threat. No, no, no. They were doing it just because this suspect was black. And so a movement based upon a false narrative, there's no evidence whatsoever that that's true, is a beautiful movement, even though it is causing people like the gentleman who shot 2 LA sheriff deputies in the head to do so, even though it motivated a gentleman in New York to kill execution style 2 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Baton Rouge to kill execution style 3 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Dallas to kill 5 cops, execution style. It's a beautiful movement. Never mind what used to be called the Ferguson effect, now it's called the Minneapolis effect. And these are cops admitting that they pull back. Why be proactive? Why try to stop crime? Why try to intervene fights? All you're going to do is put yourself in jeopardy of being accused of engaging in systemic racism. So to hell with it, we'll just deal with radio calls. It's called the Ferguson effect, at least it used to be. Now it's called the Minneapolis effect. You know what happens? Bad guys know it. And as a result, street crime goes up.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
The sleeper moment in this debate came at the end when Joe Biden announced the shutting down of America's oil industry. And I believe that's going to be the soundbite that's going to travel. As I said before the debate, he had to talk to Pennsylvania, and the president did. He talked to Pennsylvania repeatedly about fracking. And we're going to see some fact checks on the vice president's record on fracking. But the oil industry, the return to the Paris Accords, that was an unforced error by Joe Biden that I think will resonate with a lot of middle Americans as being extreme. I also think the president was very effective when he spoke directly to the black community. By the way, our colleague Kristen Welker did very well tonight in maintaining pace and questions. I kind of feel vindicated when I told Mark Meadows yesterday she would do just that. She ran a marvelous ship, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And I do believe, though, he made some ground with the African-American community, and that Joe Biden got tripped up by Kristen on the crime bill, on the super predator stuff. You have to go check what everyone else is saying, and everyone else was saying Donald Trump won. He won going away because a debate, like a football game, goes until the whistle blows at the end. And when the whistle blew at the end, Joe Biden had wilted. And America is going to, there's a lot of messages within the debate, but the old Uber message is at the end that Joe Biden was fading after 4 days of rest. 95 minutes, it went a little bit long, and he was fading. Look, let's get to my favorite quote of the night, cut number 14.
I have a transition from the oil industry, yes.
I will transition from the oil industry, yes. I thought, bingo, that's on my card, you're done. But there's a lot of other good stuff.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So Joe Biden was starting to run out of steam. 45 minutes, an hour, hour 15 into the debate, you could start to see Joe Biden looking at his watch. He called Donald Trump Abraham Lincoln. He said the poor boys instead of the proud boys. And it was becoming more clear that Joe Biden was metaphorically overheating. President Donald Trump saw an opportunity. And Kristen Welker, the moderator, decided to have climate change be the final topic of the debate. Now, why they frame climate change as an existential threat, which it isn't, to our country and to our planet as a primary concern is basically just pandering to the wish list of the most powerful elites that have their whole life so neatly organized financially, they're looking for another thing to try and spend time and try to make themselves feel valuable in life. Climate change is not a pressing issue for families that can't pay the mortgage
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. If you missed hour one, you could hear any of my hours at DennisPrager.com, anywhere on Earth. And there's always Pragertopia to hear everything anytime you want without commercials, Pragertopia.com. And again, I hope you had a good weekend. Very briefly, I will just tell you the theory that I've come to, because I have been struggling with this. Why have leaders done these lockdowns like Newsom in California and Modi in India? I mean, it goes, or Netanyahu in Israel, it goes across, in the world, it goes across the political spectrum. In the United States, it is divided politically, because the United States has the most robust conservative movement in the world. People who think clearly and morally takes in all moral issues. So the answer is people don't want deaths on their watch. That's it. That's the leader's view. Nobody should die on my watch. Again, please play Governor Cuomo from the beginning. And this was, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize this is the reason, more than politics, for the immoral lockdowns. That's it. That's what it is. So Newsom and Garcetti think, and under my watch, be really few deaths. The fact that I have crushed millions of people's lives, they have no more hope, they have no more livelihood, they must depend on government handouts, which the Democrats love because that increases the strength of government. Who cares? Who cares? Here's a story in the Daily Mail. Pediatricians believe it's riskier to keep schools closed because of mental health problems and the risk of obesity, as studies show kids being in classrooms does not cause the spread of COVID. Studies conducted both in the U.S. and globally over several months all appear to come to similar conclusions, namely, schools reopening doesn't appear to affect the rate of coronavirus spread in those areas. A Yale study found there were no differences in the proportion of those who contracted the disease and who looked after children and those who did not. A Spanish study conducted at the start of the second wave found that there was also no increase in infections among school children or teachers at reopening. Some doctors say the risks of mental health problems, hunger, obesity, due to inactivity and missing routine medical care is worse than risks of being at school. Sweden never closed its schools, not one kid died. The whole time, February, March, April, May, June, till today, schools have been open in Sweden for kids under 16. We don't know of a Swedish child who died as a result. If your only consideration is saving a life, we should not allow car driving. And by the way, we should certainly not allow people to drive in small cars. But for whatever reason, environmental concerns then trump life. Because it's all chaos on the left. There's no rational thought. If saving a life is the ultimate issue, why do you not ban small cars? Why do you allow speed limits to be increased? With a 35 mile per hour speed limit, think about it. We'd have fewer deaths. Anyway, there are a lot of people on the road who think the speed limit is 35. For them, it wouldn't be surprising. I watched the rallies. The president, there was one in North Carolina I just watched, where the president was there, and they just broke into a chant, "We love you." I don't recall that in my life time here in the U.S. This is my lifetime. I don't recall. Maybe it did. I'm just saying I don't recall. I can't say it never happened. He has done a fantastic job as president. I read a stupid piece in the Jerusalem Post by a Jewish Democrat calling Jews who support Trump suckers. The low intellectual level of the left is really remarkable. You're a sucker. You don't realize he's not your friend. You'll see. Well, they were told this 4 years ago. The left-wing Jew doesn't give a crap about Israel because he's been so good for Israel, but it's irrelevant. He's a Republican and they hate him, so it's irrelevant. Look, for most American Jews, Israel's irrelevant anyway because they've been taught by anti-Israel teachers their whole lives, anti-Israel media. Part of leftism is a loathing of Israel and the United States, central, two of the most decent countries on earth. And what he has done for Israel is, he's loved in Israel. Donald Trump is loved in Israel. Jews aren't against Trump. American Jews are against Trump. Because American Jews are the most left-wing Jews on earth. I don't know why that is exactly, but it is. And the left distorts your heart, distorts your conscience, distorts your ability to reason, distorts your moral compass. That's what it does. Sudan is now apparently ready to make peace with Israel. And there was I want to read to you from the Wall Street Journal. There is a line here. Listen to this. One of the biggest experts in international relations writing today, and for decades, is Walter Russell Mead. And he writes a piece for the Wall Street Journal, Trump's Middle East Metamorphosis. Listen to this. Ironically, the current Arab nightmare is that the next U.S. administration won't support Israel enough. You hear that? That's the Arab nightmare. It's not written by a Jew. It's written by a Wall Street Journal international relations expert, Walter Russell Mead. Regional leaders fear that Team Biden would ignore Israeli as well as Arab objections, embracing Turkey, a NATO ally, despite Mr. Erdogan's ambitions, and dropping sanctions against Iran as part of a return to the 2015 nuclear deal. You see, by making Iran the enemy, as opposed to the Obama administration, which, do you remember the John Kerry meetings with their foreign minister? These guys loved each other. The left exemplifies the famous Talmudic statement, those who are kind to the cruel will be cruel to the kind. That's John Kerry exemplified. He is kind to the cruel and cruel to the kind. That Obama made him Secretary of State says a lot about Obama. The current Arab nightmare is that the next U.S. administration won't support Israel enough. The Arabs know that their enemy is not Israel, it is Iran and Turkey, which is not Arab. Neither of them are Arabs. And Trump, Donald Trump, has more moral clarity about international relations than 99% of the professors of international relations. They're a pack of fools like most professors. And he understands Iran is the issue, and a strong America in defense of Israel is exactly what has made peace possible with Arab countries. the very opposite. It's another article in the Wall Street Journal. The opposite of the Kerry Obama left-wing New York Times thinking. There is peace breaking out in the Middle East. The reason? Donald J. Trump.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, you, like me, have a couple of Trump tattoos. He did not go after Kristen last night. Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think Trump, in an effort to get some of those suburban women, accurately recognized that attacking a young black woman on stage is probably not the greatest move. And I think he was smart to sort of keep powder dry there.
Now, Megan, your assessment of the last 30 minutes, because and I've already told the audience mine, I think Joe wilted. I think the former vice president did not go the distance and gave up a lot of ground and a lot of unforced errors in the last 30 minutes. How did you score the fight?
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't think Joe Biden was a factor. I thought it was Trump's night overall. I mean, it was just Trump. You know how he always used to say, like, I could be the most presidential president we've ever had. Well, last night he actually gave it a shot. You know, you never really see him trying to be more distinguished, more controlled, more on point, more substantive, because he, I think, prefers to be fun and avant-garde. And last night you saw him give it a shot, and it worked. He needed to do it at this time, and he did it. And I thought Joe Biden really wasn't much of a factor the entire night. And then when he actually started speaking up, he hurt himself. It was like, I think his campaign would have preferred that he just stay quiet, stay mouse-like. But let's not pop up and say we're going to give amnesty to all the illegal immigrants as soon as we get into office. And let's not say we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. Like, those are two things they didn't need to say. And in the battle for moderates, those are not good positions at this point in the race.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And this is not a Trump-friendly media outlet, the Daily Beast. Italy did everything right to stop the second coronavirus wave. So what went wrong? As you keep hearing Biden and Obama and everybody say Trump botched the recovery from coronavirus, listen to this. If you turn on the news in Italy right now, you might be forgiven for thinking you're getting reruns from March. Pictures of COVID-only units, field hospitals being erected, exhausted medics, and coffins are again dominating headlines in Italy as Italy comes to grip with a deadly second wave of COVID. Wednesday, the death toll topped 125 in a 24-hour period. For the first time since May, when Italy was still under a draconian lockdown. What's particularly troubling about the return of COVID in Italy is that the country has done everything experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci have been advising. Masks in public places are compulsory, have been for months. Nightclubs have never reopened. Children who are back at school are regularly tested, strictly social distanced. Italy's health ministry released data. 80.3% of the new infections in Italy occur at home, while only 4.2% come from recreational activities. Wednesday, Italy logged over 15,000 new infections. That would be the equivalent of 90,000 new cases in a single day in the United States, which has never been reached. And it's only getting worse. Authorities are concerned that despite all the best efforts to contain the spread, it simply cannot be stopped. For many, according to the Daily Beast, this week, in Italy, the sacrifices that helped during the first round seem lost now, as though they had been made in vain. But Trump! It's Donald Trump's fault! Nice try, you bunch of liars.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now.
Hi, everybody. You are listening to the Dennis Prager Show. I'm glad you are, because I have a lot to say. A reminder that with regard to Pure Talk, which I couldn't believe the rate was so low, $20 a month for unlimited text and unlimited talk and two gigs of data. So I actually got a phone and signed up. It's indistinguishable from my more expensive service. That's at pound 250, say Dennis Prager, Pure Talk, Simply Smart or Wireless. Pound 250, Dennis Prager. Amy Coney Barrett is set to be confirmed to the Supreme Court today. And she could start ruling on cases as of next Tuesday. Senator Angus King votes an independent in Maine who votes with the Democrats. I mean, so it's somewhat of a joke. He's a Democrat. Said this about the Republicans. They expect that they're going to be able to break the rules with impunity, and when the shoe maybe is on the other foot, nothing's going to happen. Talking about packing the court. A lot of Democrats are talking about that, because if they don't get their way, they simply smash the institution. That's the way it works. You don't get your way in the Electoral College, you smash the Electoral College. You don't get your way on the court, you pack the court with more than 9 people. That's the way, that's the attitude. Rules don't apply. I don't know what rule she's referring to. They broke the rules. There's no rule. Because the country is prepared to vote. Therefore, the party in power is not allowed to appoint a judge. So they had the Supreme Court since the 1960s. So for the last 60 years, it's been liberal, not left. Finally, there's a chance it might be conservative. And this is unacceptable. Anything the left doesn't control must be smashed. Electoral College, not to mention what's been done to the universities and journalism. So I was telling you about something that's gone on under the radar because the press has no desire to report it. The truth is Donald Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Frankly, if he got it, I would hope he'd reject it because the prize has become a joke. They gave it to Barack Obama as soon as he was elected. Even he was embarrassed. He hadn't done anything. The left tends to control that too. Some Nobel Peace Prizes were appropriate, but a long time ago, like the Soviet dissidents, a very long time ago. Again, Walter Russell Mead in the Wall Street Journal. The Palestinians have lost their position at the center of Middle East politics. And it is Turkey and Iran, not Israel, that Arab rulers are most concerned to oppose. President Trump's peace plan, which many longtime Middle East experts dismissed. Of course, experts. As soon as I hear experts, I assume something stupid will be reported. I do. I kid you not. Unfortunately, I wish it weren't so. President Trump's peace plan, which many longtime Middle East experts dismissed as a ghastly blunder and would destroy the American role in Middle East peace negotiations, has turned out to be relatively popular on the Arab street. The Zogby survey found majorities in favor of the deal of the century, quote unquote, in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Asked to identify which countries had most increased their influence in the Arab world over the past 5 years, more young Arabs in the survey named the U.S. than any other country. Boy, I just thought, wait a minute, I thought that America was at a low point in world opinion. Not in the Arab world. Isn't that interesting? 56% considered America an ally of their country, up from a low of 35% in 2018. Amazing. It is Turkey, even more than Iran, that keeps some Arab leaders awake at night. President Erdogan has aligned himself closely with the Muslim Brotherhood. There's another piece on that I will bring to your attention as soon as I find it. Oh, I didn't find it, but I will bring to your attention. In any event, this is the powerful piece of the day, Wall Street Journal, from a few weeks ago, of Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is the Somali woman who has campaigned her life for the rights of women in Islam. The narcissists of the left, now leftism is a form of narcissism. I do believe that. The feminists of the world, of the West, don't give a damn about women under Islam. In fact, on the contrary, if you speak up for them, they consider you an Islamophobe. They don't give a damn about the girls racing against biological males and losing all the races, like in Connecticut, where 20 or so of the records for high school track are owned, of girls' records, are now owned by biological males. Feminist groups care about women like communists cared about workers. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is an amazing woman. She escaped Somalia. It's a black African Muslim-raised woman. She had, by the way, she has a number of PragerU videos. She went to Holland. She became so good in Dutch and in Dutch life, she became a member of parliament. Can you imagine that? Escaping Somalia and ending up in the Dutch parliament. And then it came to the U.S. Listen to this article. It's titled, What Islamists and Wokeists Have in Common. I have opposed the fanatical illiberalism of those strands of Islam that gave rise to Al-Qaeda. I broke with my Somali family and ultimately with their faith because I believe that it is human freedom that should be sacrosanct, not antiquated doctrines that demand submission by the individual. So implacable are the proponents of Sharia that I have faced repeated death threats. Yet I have always consoled myself that in the U.S., freedom of conscience and expression rank above any set of religious beliefs. It was partly for this reason that I moved here and became a citizen in 2013. Stay tuned for the rest.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
But the president got him to say that he is going to phase out the oil industry, that he is going to phase out fracking. I think he lost a ton of votes in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Texas because he's on the record. He said these things.
Right. No, he did, and he was not very artful. The real kind of interesting thing about last night was that it appeared in multiple places in the debate that when it came to whatever the topic was, Joe had one point, and he could not get off of that point. There was no nimbleness to his rhetoric to be able to make a follow-up point and then a point that followed that. So he would kind of get stuck in these moments. And when it came to the fracking and the fossil fuels, he even ends up admitting that 11 million jobs will have to leave the economy. It was just a stunning admission at the very end of what was a really good debate for President Trump in every other way. Everybody knows that soundbite on talk radio today will be put side by side with the montage of sound bites that has been on Twitter for a week of him saying, I'm absolutely going to ban fracking. And you won't be able to have it both ways. And yes, Pennsylvania and Ohio, that especially hurt him. They had been making rumblings about making strides in Texas. I don't believe any of that, by the way. I don't think Trump is even nearly in danger in Texas. But for Pennsylvania, which is kind of where the whole ball of wax comes down to, it killed him. That handed Donald Trump Pennsylvania last night, which I already thought was trending in his direction.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And not only did he win the debate, he might have won the election last night. There are thousands and thousands of emails we are getting at freedom@charliekirk.com, and feel free to email us your feedback of swing voters and people in the middle, moderate voters that say last night gave them exactly what they needed to vote for Donald Trump. If you're still undecided at this moment, you were waiting for a moment like that. I understand that the Malibu and the Manhattan chattering class of liberal elites, or the base of the Democrat Party, no matter what Donald Trump could have done last night, you would not vote for him. Donald Trump could have done an act of a miracle, and they still would not have voted for him. However, last night was all about swing voters. Last night was also about properly motivating the base for President Trump to continue to do well in early voting, where Republicans are doing quite well. So typically in these debates, it's always about style. Politicians stay within kind of a pre-arranged framework. They use their talking points, but the number one thing that politicians are told to do by their handlers and their advisors is do no harm. Don't contradict any other statements you've made. Don't turn off voters, and definitely don't make news that will hurt you in key demographics and key areas.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Dennis Prager, and you know we are in a fight for our fundamental freedoms. That's why I am grateful for my friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. They are on the front lines fighting pivotal lawsuits for Americans whose freedoms are threatened, and they do it for free. That's why we're asking you to be as generous as you can by giving today so that Alliance Defending Freedom can continue. I'm going to get to a guest in a moment, really important one, but I want to finish this very critical piece for a moment or two. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the Somali woman who became a member of the Dutch Parliament, now one of the major intellects in the world, in the United States, advocating the rights of women under Islam, as she grew up in Somalia. She came to the U.S. for freedom of conscience and expression. And she writes, "It never occurred to me that free speech would come under threat in my newly adopted country. Even when I first encountered what has come to be known as cancel culture, in 2014 I was invited to receive an honorary degree at Brandeis University and then ungraciously disinvited. I didn't fret too much. I was inclined to dismiss the alliance of campus leftism and Islamists as a lunatic fringe. But the power of the illiberal elements of the American left has grown, not just on campus, but in the media and many corporations. They have inculcated in a generation of students an ideology that has much more in common with the intolerant doctrines of a religious cult than with the secular political thought I studied at Holland's Leiden University." Yep, the Islamists and the leftists. They have an equal reverence for open speech, for free speech. More on that later, but very related because of what this election is about. The Job Creators Network, one of my favorite institutions in America, has the Keep America America campaign at keepamericaamerica.com, which I mention every day. The Chief Communications Officer is Elaine Parker. Elaine Parker, welcome to my show.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Where are you located?
I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Tell me, can you go into a restaurant in Orlando?
Most of them, we're at 100% open, and many of the restaurants I've been in are not even requiring a mask to be in, although I do see the wait staff still wearing masks. They're not requiring masks in the restaurants. Disney World is open, so everybody can rest assured. Disney World is open, Epcot's open, Universal Studios is open. You do have to make a reservation at Disney to get in, and you do have to wear a mask inside or out. But they are open, and when you compare that to what the governor in California is doing to Disneyland, which is not open, he's killing jobs across his entire state. So it's a tale of two governors when you compare California to Florida.
That's correct. I live in California. I can't believe, and I rail against it every day, with the deprivation of rights in this state are unprecedented in American history, and nobody does much. You do. You guys do something. So tell me, your major campaign with KeepAmericaAmerica.com is to get people to the polls, correct?
Absolutely, Dennis. This is not going to be a persuasion election. This is going to be a turnout election. And I know we say this every cycle, that this is the most important election of our lifetimes, but this is absolutely a fork in the road, the most important election of our lifetime. Do we want an election where we have free speech and free enterprise and the American dream, or do we want an America where free speech is muffled and censored, and do we want our free enterprise taken away so that people will have a dream to start a business and capture that American dream is taken away through high taxes and strangling regulations? It is a very much a choice election, and Americans have got to get out and vote, and they have to vote to keep America America, because it's on the ballot.
That is, America is on the ballot. It's what I keep telling people. Trump is not and Biden is not. America is on the ballot. That's exactly
100%.
That's exactly right. How forgive me, how were the early apparently there's a lot of voting taking place. Is that correct?
Yeah, apparently over 50 million people have already voted in this country, and all states that have early voting are early voting at this point. I voted over the weekend here in Florida. There were lines, but they're very they move very quickly, and because of the social distancing, it looks longer than it is, to be honest with you.
All right, when we get back, I want you to tell me what you think and what people can do. That's most important. During the break, go to keepamericaamerica.com. Also during the break, order Relief Factor, 800-500-8384. There are two things that I find fascinating about the Relief Factor ads. They're doing so well that they obviously keep advertising. You can't keep advertising if you're not selling product. They're selling product because it works. It's a phenomenal product with regard to back pain, joint pain, knee pain, the whole list. But what is also remarkable is that there are still people who haven't tried it. If they had saturated all of my audience, they wouldn't be advertising either. So all I ask is that you try it for 3 weeks for $19.95. ReliefFactor.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Kamala Harris has referred to the Black Lives Matter movement as a beautiful movement. Yeah, there's some knuckleheads. Yeah, there's some people that set fire to some things. Yeah, there's some people that shoot. But by and large, it's a beautiful movement for racial solidarity based upon a narrative, and that narrative is that the police are engaging in systemic racism against black people, that the police are killing black people because they are black people, not because they've done something bad, not because a cop reasonably thought that this black person was posing a threat. No. They were doing it just because this suspect was black. And so a movement based upon a false narrative, there's no evidence whatsoever that that's true, is a beautiful movement, even though it is causing people like the gentleman who shot 2 LA sheriff deputies in the head to do so, even though it motivated a gentleman in New York to kill execution style 2 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Baton Rouge to kill execution style 3 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Dallas to kill 5 cops, execution style. It's a beautiful movement. Never mind what used to be called the Ferguson effect, now it's called the Minneapolis effect. And these are cops admitting that they pull back. Why be proactive? Why try to stop crime? Why try to intervene fights? All you're going to do is put yourself in jeopardy of being accused of engaging in systemic racism. So to hell with it. We'll just deal with radio calls. It's called the Ferguson effect, at least it used to be. Now it's called the Minneapolis effect. You know what happens? Bad guys know it. And as a result, street crime goes up.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
The sleeper moment in this debate came at the end when Joe Biden announced the shutting down of America's oil industry. And I believe that's going to be the soundbite that's going to travel. As I said before the debate, he had to talk to Pennsylvania, and the president did. He talked to Pennsylvania repeatedly about fracking. And we're going to see some fact checks on the vice president's record on fracking. But the oil industry, the return to the Paris Accords, that was an unforced error by Joe Biden that I think will resonate with a lot of middle Americans as being extreme. I also think the president was very effective when he spoke directly to the black community. By the way, our colleague Kristen Welker did very well tonight in maintaining pace and questions. I kind of feel vindicated when I told Mark Meadows yesterday she would do just that. She ran a marvelous ship, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And I do believe, though, he made some ground with the African-American community, and that Joe Biden got tripped up by Kristen on the crime bill, on the super predator stuff. You have to go check what everyone...
All right, everybody. I'm speaking with Elaine Parker with KeepAmericaAmerica.com. So 50 million people have voted already. That is an astonishing thing. That's by the 3rd week of October. Now it's the 4th week, obviously, but by the 3rd week, this was true. So what does Election Day mean if 50 million people vote weeks before the election day?
Well, my hope is that we'll see an answer on Election Day with all of the kind of shenanigans going on around the country. What we do know is that there has been a 22% increase in Republicans voting early this cycle over 2016, which is good news, as far as that goes. But we want to see that number go higher. And we encourage people to go to KeepAmericaAmerica.com. You can find out all the voting information that you need on where to go and everything like that. And bring a friend. Bring 10 friends if you can. But get out there and vote in person. If you can go pump your gas or you can go grocery shopping, you can vote safely.
Of course you can vote safely. So I always hear about this, and it's a little distressing and also, frankly, confusing. Everyone I speak to, and I am not an expert on this, so the people I trust tell me you're one of them. Apparently, there is a significant number of conservative/Republicans who don't vote. Is that correct?
There are. In 2016, there were about 7 million evangelicals that did not vote in this election. We need those folks to come out. We've got to support our conservative judges on the Supreme Court. We've got to support free market. We've got to support free speech. Our security, Dennis, is on the ballot. What we have seen with this rioting across the country, our personal security, it's scary.
Or how about the law in my state that if you steal things under $900, it's not a felony. Did you know that?
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
I did not know that.
Yeah. There's no reason you would, but I just want you to know that. $900.
That's frightening.
Yes, it is. I mean, I know people who own stores, they get looted. I mean, seriously looted. Nothing happens because nothing happened. It was under $900 that people stole.
Well, the looting that has happened across this country and the violence that the media has portrayed as just peaceful protests. I don't know if you know this, but we actually did a commercial. We put together a 1-minute spot that demonstrated across the country in every city where we saw this violence that these were not peaceful protests, that they were very violent, and then we were driving traffic to our website, keepamericaamerica.com. We put it out on YouTube, and within a couple of days, YouTube censored the video and slapped it with an inappropriate content label. Let me tell you the source of our content. News footage, local news footage across the country that we pulled from YouTube and is still on YouTube today. But our video is censored.
Well, that's another thing that's on the ballot. People should know who don't think voting is important. For the first time in American history, free speech is on the ballot.
Absolutely. And we have been a victim of it. So we feel it, and we are trying to communicate as much as possible to Americans that it is that important. If it can happen to us, it can happen to anybody. That is correct.
Okay, so people should go to keepamericaamerica.com, and that could turn the election. I just want you to know, tell all the guys and ladies and whoever else works there at Job Creators Network that I am in just deep admiration, in fact, in love with them.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're very welcome. Thank you. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. If those numbers are accurate, I throw up my hands. 7 million evangelicals didn't vote. God doesn't care what happens to America. Is that the theology here? I don't get it, folks. I admit it. I don't get it. When I say I don't get it, it doesn't mean I disagree. It means I don't get it. Or secular conservatives. What about the Californians? I know people. Everybody knows who's going to win California. My vote doesn't matter. Of course your vote matters. Not only does it matter for everything else other than president, and by the way, I have a voter's guide for California voters up at DennisPrager.com. But not only does it matter for all these other things, it also matters because the popular vote has a deep psychological and political importance. So there's no justification for not voting. Back to this article, Ayan Hirsi, who's at the Hoover Institution. Again, the Somali woman, she's comparing the Islamists that she ran away from in Somalia to the left in America. Consider the resemblances. The adherents of each constantly pursue ideological purity certain of their own rectitude. Neither Islamists nor the woke will engage in debate. Both prefer indoctrination of the submissive and damnation of those who resist. The two ideologies have distinctive rituals. Islamists shout Allahu Akbar and death to America. The woke chant Black Lives Matter and I can't breathe. Islamists pray to Mecca. The woke take the knee. Both like burning the American flag. Ooh, good one.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So Joe Biden was starting to run out of steam. 45 minutes, an hour, hour 15 into the debate, you could start to see Joe Biden looking at his watch. He called Donald Trump Abraham Lincoln. He said the poor boys instead of the proud boys. And it was becoming more clear that Joe Biden was metaphorically overheating. President Donald Trump saw an opportunity. And Kristen Welker, the moderator, decided to have climate change be the final topic of the debate. Now, why they frame climate change as an existential threat, which it isn't, to our country and to our planet as a primary concern is basically just pandering to the wish list of the most powerful elites that have their whole life so neatly organized financially, they're looking for another thing to try and spend time and try to make themselves feel valuable in life. Climate change is not a pressing issue for families that can't pay the mortgage and cannot get jobs, cannot send their kids to school. And we're happy to build out the entire issue of climate change, environmentalism, and environmentalism has become a religion of the left. But since they decided to have that topic last, Joe Biden was the least alert, the least prepared to interface on this topic. And so this topic started around whether or not climate change was an existential threat. President Donald Trump, I thought, handled it perfectly. Lowest carbon emissions in 30 years, 1 trillion trees planted. He went through the whole list.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Glenn Reynolds, who writes a column for USA Today, wrote a column about Hunter Biden and his laptop, and USA Today won't publish it? Twitter shuts down the account of the New York Post so they can't even tweet their own article? And people trying to tweet the article get a message that says error? I know I got a message that said error when I tried to tweet it. So big tech, Google, Facebook, Instagram, all against Trump. Hollywood hates his guts. The media have been complicit in suppressing this story and attacking it as Russian disinformation. But the Steele dossier, that wasn't Russian disinformation. Oh, no. John is in St. Petersburg, Florida. John, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were talking about Adam Schiff, and he was saying that this is all Russian disinformation. And I
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here, and Thomas in Moultrie, Georgia. Hi. Hello, Thomas.
Mr. Prager.
Yes.
I'm 29 years old and poor dirt farmer in South Georgia, and one of my
good buddies. He's a born-again Christian. Was just going off of, you're talking about the 7 million evangelical Christians refraining from voting. My friend, his reasoning for not voting is that both parties or both candidates are just two sides of the same coin, and it doesn't really matter who our elected officials are because it's all controlled by Lord God.
Wow. It's very rare that I have nothing to say. I am paid to have something to say. It is so stupid that I can't react. It's so self-evidently, it is actually blasphemous in my opinion. And I don't think I've ever described a religious view as blasphemous. It makes God look like a fool, and I really hate when that is done. So God doesn't give a hoot what we do, because he's in control, so it's irrelevant. Would this person have voted against Hitler when there were elections in Germany in the 30s? Ask him.
I surely will. One more interesting side note, he follows Jonathan Kleck, I consider a false prophet of
I'm not familiar. All right, well, that I'm not familiar with that name. But whoever he follows, if indeed the person he follows says the same thing, it has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with decency. Wow. I won't vote because they're... By the way, there are not only apparently religious people, there are also secular people. Oh, they're a Republican, Democrat, they're the same. People who say that, it's hard to be 100% wrong. Usually there's some truth to even foolish comments. Or dishonest comments sometimes have some truth. There's no truth to that one. Please click at my website on the ADF banner, Alliance Defending Freedom, during the break. Please contribute. We got to protect freedom, and nobody does it better than the Alliance.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Kamala Harris has referred to the Black Lives Matter movement as a beautiful movement. Yeah, there's some knuckleheads. Yeah, there's some people that set fire to some things. Yeah, there's some people that shoot. But by and large, it's a beautiful movement for racial solidarity, based upon a narrative, and that narrative is that the police are engaging in systemic racism against black people, that the police are killing black people because they are black people, not because they've done something bad, not because a cop reasonably thought that this black person was posing a threat. No. They were doing it just because this suspect was black. And so a movement based upon a false narrative, there's no evidence whatsoever that that's true, is a beautiful movement, even though it is causing people like the gentleman who shot 2 LA sheriff deputies in the head to do so, even though it motivated a gentleman in New York to kill execution style 2 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Baton Rouge to kill execution style 3 cops, even though it motivated a gentleman in Dallas to kill 5 cops, execution style. It's a beautiful movement. Never mind what used to be called the Ferguson effect, now it's called the Minneapolis effect. And these are cops admitting that they pull back. Why be proactive? Why try to stop crime? Why try to intervene fights? All you're going to do is put yourself in jeopardy of being accused of engaging in systemic racism. So to hell with it. We'll just deal with radio calls. It's called the Ferguson effect, at least it used to be. Now it's called the Minneapolis effect. You know what happens? Bad guys know it. And as a result, street crime goes up.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
sleeper moment in this debate came at the end when Joe Biden announced the shutting down of America's oil industry. And I believe that's going to be the soundbite that's going to travel. As I said before the debate, he had to talk to Pennsylvania, and the president did. He talked to Pennsylvania repeatedly about fracking. And we're going to see some fact checks on the vice president's record on fracking. But the oil industry, the return to the Paris Accords, that was an unforced error by Joe Biden that I think will resonate with a lot of middle Americans as being extreme. I also think the president was very effective when he spoke directly to the black community. By the way, our colleague Kristen Welker did very well tonight in maintaining pace and questions. I kind of feel vindicated when I told Mark Meadows yesterday she would do just that. She ran a marvelous ship, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And I do believe, though, he made some ground with the African-American community, and that Joe Biden got tripped up by Kristen on the crime bill, on the super predator stuff. You have to go check what everyone else was saying, and everyone else was saying Donald Trump won. He wasn't going away because a debate, like a football game, goes until the whistle blows at the end. And when the whistle blew at the end, Joe Biden had wilted. And America is going to, there's a lot of messages within the debate, but the old uber message is at the end that Joe Biden was fading after 4 days of rest. 95 minutes, it went a little bit long, and he was fading. Look, let's get to my favorite quote of the night, cut number 14.
I have a transition from the oil industry, yes.
I will transition from the oil industry, yes. I thought, bingo, that's on my card, you're done. But there's a lot of other good stuff.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So Joe Biden was starting to run out of steam. 45 minutes, an hour, hour 15 into the debate, you could start to see Joe Biden looking at his watch. He called Donald Trump Abraham Lincoln. He said the poor boys instead of the proud boys. And it was becoming more clear that Joe Biden was metaphorically overheating. President Donald Trump saw an opportunity. And Kristen Welker, the moderator, decided to have climate change be the final topic of the debate. Now, why they frame climate change as an existential threat, which it isn't, to our country and to our planet as a primary concern is basically just pandering to the wish list of the most powerful elites that have their whole life so neatly organized financially, they're looking for another thing to try and spend time and try to make themselves feel valuable in life. Climate change is not a pressing issue for families that can't pay the mortgage and cannot get jobs, cannot send their kids to school. And we're happy to build out the entire issue of climate change, environmentalism, and environmentalism has become a religion of the left. But since they decided to have that topic last, Joe Biden was the least alert, the least prepared to interface on this topic. And so this topic started around whether or not climate change was an existential threat. President Donald Trump, I thought, handled it perfectly. Lowest carbon emissions in 30 years, 1 trillion trees planted. He went through the whole list.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Glenn Reynolds, who writes a column for USA Today, wrote a column about Hunter Biden and his laptop, and USA Today won't publish it? Twitter shuts down the account of the New York Post so they can't even tweet their own article? And people trying to tweet the article get a message that says error? I know I got a message that said error when I tried to tweet it. So big tech, Google, Facebook, Instagram, all against Trump. Hollywood hates his guts. The media have been complicit in suppressing this story and attacking it as Russian disinformation. But the Steele dossier, that wasn't Russian disinformation. Oh, no. John is in St. Petersburg, Florida. John, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, I was just thinking
Hi, everybody. Wonderful to be with you. Really wonderful. I'm Dennis Prager. And along with my colleagues, Phil Anderson and Jerry Goldberg, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show. Phil Anderson and I go back a good 20 seconds. All right, y'all. Man called last hour as shutting his restaurant in Skokie, Illinois. 26 employees. So you can eat without a mask on an airplane next to hundreds of strangers within 2 inches of people. But you can't eat in a restaurant in L.A. or apparently Chicago, at least according to that report, but I could tell you about L.A. 6 feet apart. The theory of my first hour is critical. I'm going to repeat it again, and I'm going to repeat it and repeat it because repetition is the mother of pedagogy. The leaders who have deprived Americans and all over the world, leaders who have truly deprived their people, but it's mostly in America and Israel, and, well, not quite a number. Australia has been even worse than America, at least the state of Victoria. These people, these so-called leaders, they don't want anybody to die on their watch. That's their only concern. So if more people commit suicide, more children get abused, more spouses and partners get abused, more people take drugs, more people die of drugs, more people get depressed, that doesn't matter. Part 2, overwhelmingly those in favor of lockdowns are not losing their jobs. Their lack of empathy for people who have lost their livelihoods is breathtaking. How you could not weep for these people. In their self-righteousness, which is one of the major products of the left, they don't even consider the horrible circumstances of millions of people as a result of the lockdown, because they are not affected. They're rich. The white-collar guy can work from home in many cases, and they do. Big deal. Guy who runs a store or runs a restaurant can't work from home. A nail salon, a hair salon can't work from home. They wouldn't even allow you to work from home. You started your hair salon business at home, they wouldn't allow it. I was mentioning to you Ayaan Hirsi Ali, that great Somali woman who fights for the rights of women under Islam. She's a research fellow at the Hoover Institution. She's a member of the Dutch Parliament. She compares Islamists and wokeists, the woke people. And she has a very powerful statement about how she gives a whole list of commonalities between the left and the Islamists. And finally, both ideologies aim to tear down the existing system and replace it with utopias that always turn out to be hellish anarchies. Islamic State in Raqqa, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle. Both are collectivist. Group identity trumps the individual. Both tolerate and often glorify violence carried out by zealots. That's correct. The left, not liberals, the left, have more in common with Islamists than with liberals. Foolish liberals, which is almost redundant, do not understand that. They still think their enemy are conservatives. New York Times writes a piece that the Trump has killed the Republican Party. Last Sunday, yesterday, a week ago Sunday, I was at an event outdoors, needless to say, in a tent, with football field distancing. And I was at an event. Of course, we were, 2 feet from each other without masks. And by golly, we're here to tell of the story. So in addition to myself, Sebastian Gorka, Larry Elder, and our friend from TPUSA, Charlie Kirk. It was a big panel of conservative leaders, and at the very end, Brian and Jennifer of the Morning Answer, who did a fine job moderating, said, "Okay, we're going to ask you a question. You have to give a one-sentence answer." And here it comes. We'll start with you, Dennis. What is the biggest accomplishment of Donald Trump? And I thank God that came up with this answer. He gave conservatives testicles. That was a good one. It just came to my brain immediately, and the audience just cracked up. And they just kept applauding because they knew it was true. And the New York Times writes that he's killed the Republican Party. Because the New York Times really cares about having a robust political party. For the New York Times, the dreams are Bob Dole and Mitt Romney. And I mean, Bob Dole's a fine human being. I have no comments on. I'm not being cute. I don't know Mitt Romney. He's been a huge disappointment. But in any event, it is what it is. That's what they like. Republicans who stand for nothing. The chief of Mitt Romney's campaign acknowledged he does not have an ideology. He acknowledged it years ago. It's not new. And now, of course, he's a never Trumper. But he's a never Republican. He's a never conservative. He's a nothing. The guy who ran, yes, isn't that amazing? The guy who ran Mitt Romney's campaign acknowledged, I don't have any ideology. That's correct. The only ideology is he doesn't like Donald Trump. That's his ideology. So the New York Times writes a piece here. Oh, Trump killed the Republican Party. That's really something. R.I.P. GOP. The party of Lincoln had a good run. Then came Mr. Trump, written by the editorial board. Yes. There is no philosophical underpinning for the Republican Party anymore. The veteran strategist. What is a strategist? Who are these people? Do you know that on MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times, they have these Republican strategists? I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican since the 80s. I never heard of these people. I am paid, professionally paid, to know people who are in politics. I've never heard of one of them. Who are these people? They are nothing. They're nothing. The veteran strategist Reed Galen recently lamented to this board, a co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Oh, yes. That is one sick project of angry Republicans that they have lost their status in the Republican Party to the people who care about America and support Donald Trump. It's a very oddball crowd. But look, it's a free country so long as they don't have power because they support the Democrats who don't give a damn about freedom. Anyway, there is no philosophical underpinning for the Republican Party anymore? Really? I would say there's more philosophical underpinning than there was when Mitt Romney ran. Mitt Romney had no philosophy. That's my whole point. There's far more of a philosophical underpinning under Trump than there was under Romney. Hi, this is Dennis Prager, and you know we are in a fight for our fundamental freedoms. That's why I am grateful for my friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. They are on the front lines fighting pivotal lawsuits for Americans whose freedoms are threatened, and they do it for free. That's why we're asking you to be as generous as you can by giving today so that Alliance Defending Freedom can continue to fight these lawsuits and be ready when your rights are threatened too. Give your gift now by visiting adflegal.org/Prager, and thank you for joining the fight for freedom.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The 2020 election is now just days away. Here's my short case for backing the Trump-Pence ticket and voting for Republican senators and representatives in your state. On the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has done as well as any president could have done, and certainly better than Joe Biden. You're safer and more secure because of the Trump military buildup. The president has made the necessary pivot with China, and he's brokered the first major peace deal in the Middle East in 25 years. On the economy, Trump and the GOP succeeded in bringing unemployment to all-time lows early this year. Now, even amidst the pandemic, the economy is bouncing back. Your First and Second Amendment freedoms are much stronger as well because Trump has bolstered the Supreme Court and federal courts with strong judges who honored the Constitution. Whatever you think of Trump personally, there's no question. His policies have been good for the country. Join me in voting for a second Trump term. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Sydney, where is the case against Mike Flynn?
It is still sitting in Judge Emmett Sullivan's court more than 160 days after the government moved to dismiss it with prejudice, more than 50 days after the D.C. Circuit told him to decide it with dispatch, and now approximately 3 weeks after the hearing.
Is this just playing for time? You filed that request to have it dismissed. The higher 3-judge panel said it should be. Then Judge Sullivan played another game. How long can this purgatory last? You're the legal professional. How long can this sword of Damocles be held above Mike Flynn's head?
Well, if it runs into next week, I think we're going to have to look at filing another mandamus action. This is just unforgivable.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
The bar was very low for Trump on this debate, and he cleared it magnificently. All he had to do...
The Democrats did themselves in because they kind of, on all the media leading up to it, on all the channels, they had the surrogates on talking about, well, we're expecting the president to come out and hammer us and be mean and nasty and come for us. And I just, blow the expectations away. Just be kind, control. It was a really strong performance in so many ways. Not the least of which was he also controlled the substance. He got in the topics that he wanted to get in. He did bring up the Hunter Biden laptop. He did bring up the corruption issue. He did work his way into those areas that some people had said he wouldn't be able to. And I think that it was just a masterful use of the moment, the opportunity, the demeanor, and the content of the evening, I thought it all worked in his favor.
I'm guessing that if any needle was moved, it was with suburban women who needed to see that he is capable of being controlled, measured, responsible, unemotional. That was really magnificent on his part that he was able to do that. And look, we've seen him do it before. We know he's capable
everybody.
of it.
Dennis Prager here.
But the fact that he chose to do it last
1-8 Prager 776. I'm reading, I told you, the New York Times editorial about the cretins who support the president and how he has destroyed R.I.P., the Republican Party. Actually, it's been resuscitated after Mitt Romney and many of his predecessors. They quote Mitt Romney's, I got the name, by the way, Mitt Romney's campaign director. Man, yes. What's his name here? Let's see. Stuart Stevens, yes. Who, as I told you, years ago acknowledged he has no ideology. He said, burn the Republican Party to the ground and start over. This is the guy that they quote. So here's a typical, I look at the most popular comments. The comments are very, very instructive to me about what people think, especially in the New York Times. They actually have good grammar. They're well-educated and fools, which is the usual case for the well-educated. So, for example, here's the second most popular one. The New York Times recommends 941 people recommend it. Here. Beyond all the harm he has wrought, that is Trump, that must now be corrected, he has left behind 40 to 45% of the American population nurturing their white supremacist xenophobic grievances. There you go. That's what the left. This is. I won't mention the man's name. Just say he's in Texas. I have no desire to humiliate a man. He's a fool. He's a brainwashed fool. Sure, he went to college, maybe graduate school. This is it. Yep. Those who support the president have white supremacist, xenophobic grievances. This is the common view. Amazing. Those of us who believe that God has created the human being without color. Adam had no color. Or if he had a color, we don't know it. It's the whole point of the story. We all emanate from Adam, whether you take it literally or not is irrelevant. The moral of the story is no group is better than any other. So we have white supremacist grievances and xenophobic grievances. Wow. You never quite specify what they are. I guess it's now considered, not I guess, it is now considered a white supremacist grievance if you would like to have orchestras play Western music or the greatest works. If you say the greatest works were written by Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Schubert, Schumann, Haydn, if you say that, you are now considered a white supremacist because they were all white. But of course, why restrict it to white? Why not say, if you say Bach, Schubert, Schumann, Beethoven, Haydn, Handel, Mozart, if you say that they are the greatest, why aren't you a German supremacist? Why doesn't that make you a Nazi? Right? This is what the left has done, and fools like this guy who wrote this comment in the New York Times. This is what they believe. If you believe that, Dennis, I have a grievance. I want to hear the best music. I don't care who wrote the best music. I don't care if they're white, black, German, or Cuban. I don't give a damn. All I care about is, am I listening to the greatest music written? If you ask Japanese, what is the greatest music written, literate Japanese, they will say Bach, Beethoven, Schubert, Schumann, Mozart, Haydn. They will also say that. Are they white supremacists in Japan? The greatest recordings of the Bach cantatas, there are many hundreds of them. Those are songs for voices and orchestra, usually holy works. Bach was a religious Christian. Have been recorded by a man named Suzuki and recorded in Japan with his Japanese musicians. Gee, now why would that be? Because they think it's the greatest music ever written. Because you don't have to be white to believe that. I guess that's a white supremacist grievance. But as I said, why isn't it a German supremacist grievance? So this is the stuff that they believe. And they think that they are morally progressive in doing so. It's quite remarkable. Yes. So I want to read to you, if not today, then tomorrow, I will read to you from the interview in the Wall Street Journal with two of the three leaders of the Great Barrington Declaration, and what they hold, these people who are against the lockdowns. They're from Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford. Next time the left tells you follow the science, please tell the person who might actually believe that. They do. I finally come to the conclusion that leftists believe their lies, which is very scary, because then there's no hope for them. If you know you're lying, there's hope for you. They really believe they follow the science, but as soon as scientists differ with what they believe, they close down those scientists. So that if you tweet the Great Barrington Declaration, then you are shut down by Twitter as scientific misinformation. So they don't follow the science, they follow the scientists they agree with. I say this frequently, and it needs to be said frequently. I read to you earlier about the general recognition now that keeping kids out of school is so not only stupid, but profoundly harmful. It is actually, in my opinion, it is a form of child abuse. We shall return. 1-8 Prager 776.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We've been told for days now, for weeks now, that this is a Russian influence operation. It's not Hunter Biden's laptop, and this is another version of Russian collusion by the Trump campaign. We now have the evidence. You have the story. The Senate, the Boblinsky is out there. We have the FBI. We have DNI Ratcliffe saying there is no Russian aspect to any of this. John, what should your colleagues, your fellow media moguls and editors-in-chief be doing right now?
They should be going through the same emails I've been going through, that Peter Schweizer's been going through, and Matt Boyle's been going through, and doing the reporting and finding out what went on in Joe Biden Inc. during the days he was vice president and the immediate afterwards. Remember, this story about China is more than just a family getting rich, though that should be the primary concern we have. The second is that it shows a judgment question. Donald Trump for 20 years has been arguing that China poses an enormous threat to America. Joe Biden was arguing he'd like to make China grow, and it wasn't a threat to America. His family cashed in on it. Then in 2019 and 2020, when the coronavirus came along, he flipped around and came to Donald Trump's way of thinking. So which candidate do you want? Do you want the candidate who was right about China from the beginning, or the one that changed tunes only after he and his family made millions of dollars from China? I think that's the big question that'll be at the middle of this debate tonight.
You're talking about what they should be doing now. What should they be doing with regards to what they said previously about the laptop, John?
They ought to correct the record. They ought to acknowledge that when they went with Adam Schiff's malarkey one more time, how many times has Adam Schiff misled the country the last few years? They should correct the record. They should say, we were wrong, we've been told otherwise, and then they should follow up on the journalism now that they know it's real material and inform the American public. Anything short of that is censorship to the detriment of the American public, the voting public.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Glenn Reynolds, who writes a column for USA Today, wrote a column about Hunter Biden and his laptop, and USA Today won't publish it? Twitter shuts down the account of the New York Post so they can't even tweet their own article? And people trying to tweet the article get a message that says error? I know I got a message that said error when I tried to tweet it. So big tech, Google, Facebook, Instagram, all against Trump. Hollywood hates his guts. The media have been complicit in suppressing this story and attacking it as Russian disinformation. But the Steele dossier, that wasn't Russian disinformation. Oh, no. John is in St. Petersburg, Florida. John, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were talking about Adam Schiff, and he was saying that this is all Russian disinformation. And I was thinking, well, the guy that dropped off the laptop was Hunter Biden, so I guess the Bidens are Russians. Is that right?
Apparently so, John. The Russians made Hunter Biden take his laptop. The Russians made Hunter Biden leave it for 90 days, and then it therefore became the property of the computer store owner. The Russians made the computer store owner contacted the FBI. The Russians, they're amazing. The biggest interferer in our election, not the Russians. It's the media.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, you, like me, have a couple of Trump tattoos. He did not go after Kristen last night. Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not surprised at all.
All right, everybody. I want to tell you about another great movie that is coming out. I think it's both our moral obligation as Americans and as conservatives, and, by the way, the moral obligation of liberals to see what the other side actually believes and not read about what we believe in the New York Times. To see these films, because they're terrific and because they are so powerful. So Phelan McAleer, who has made one after another of these films, who's really created a new genre of movie, and that is not having a script, as it were. The script is not written by writers. It is written by the people who actually said what is heard on stage. It so affected me. I saw his play that he had done. It's, again, Phelan McAleer. And I saw his play on Ferguson. And usually you forget plays and movies. That has stayed with me to this day. It has formed my understanding of what happened at Ferguson by hearing the transcript of the trial of the officer in Ferguson. So now they have a new one, or he has a new one. He's the producer and director of ObamaGate, the movie. It's about the Russia witch hunt. So I saw the trailer. I just watched it. And you're doing it again. You are taking the words of the actors, that is the actors in history, not the actors on stage, and making them into a film. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. Everything you see in ObamaGate, the movie, was said in memos, text messages, emails, or congressional testimony. This is behind the scenes. It's wonderful. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, James Comey, John Brennan, in their own words, and boy is it funny, and boy is it serious.
Yes, that's exactly what the trailer. By the way, folks could see the trailer. Where could they see the trailer?
ObamaGateMovie.com.
ObamaGateMovie.com. By the way,
yeah.
It is. But it was. I actually saw it at Real Clear Politics. They picked it up.
Yeah. No, they've been very good, and it is real. No better name, Real Clear Politics. So Showtime produced the Comey Rule, which is a dramatization of this similar ObamaGate scandal. Only they dramatized it. They added stuff that wasn't there. They lied, and it's a boring, pedantic, preachy, 40 million extravagant production. Ours is, in their own words, verbatim, a film theatrical event, and boy is it gripping and funny and laugh out loud.
When is it coming out?
It's out. It came out last week, and so far it's had 300,000 views on YouTube. Now, you know how hard it is to get a view on YouTube nowadays, Dennis. So despite Instagram have taken down our page, Facebook have stopped their advertising, Twitter have hidden the term ObamaGate. You can't get it now in recent history. But despite that, 300,000 people have found it and watched it and commented on it. So we want to. The Comey Rule got 600,000 viewers for its first episode on Showtime. We want to beat that because it's time to show Hollywood this is what people actually want. They want the truth, and they want to laugh, and they want to be entertained, but they also want serious stuff as well. And this is Dean Cain playing Peter Strzok, Christy Swanson playing Lisa Page, John James of Dynasty, the original Dynasty, Jeff Colby of the original Dynasty playing James Comey in a Boy Scout uniform. This is funny.
I know, I love that.
Serious.
James Comey in the Boy Scout uniform was awesome. ObamaGateTheMovie.com.
Yeah,
So I wanted to. This is new to me, not in any way surprising, but I did not know. I want to know exactly what's happened with social media. So let's begin. What did Instagram do?
They just took down our page, right? They just removed our page, and we wrote to them and said, "Oh yeah, it's a mistake. We'll put it back up." 10 days later, it's gone. It's not a backup. It's a black hole. They won't respond. Facebook have told us that. So Facebook have told us you're not allowed to advertise now with this political moratorium, but they're accepting ads for the Borat movie. Similarly, Twitter have hidden the term ObamaGate. There was reason we called it ObamaGate was because in May there was 3.5 million tweets with the term ObamaGate in it. You go into Twitter now and search in the latest thing for ObamaGate. There are no tweets for ObamaGate except for a few.
Hold on there. This needs to be known. ObamaGateTheMovie.com. I'll continue with Phelan McAleer, who's made the movie. Relief Factor has a very important message to you. If you're suffering from back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, and the like, then they say you will know in 3 weeks. It's all it takes to know if it works. So they give you a very cheap price for 3 weeks, $19.95 plus shipping. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-500-8384, relieffactor.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And this is not a Trump-friendly media outlet, the Daily Beast. Italy did everything right to stop the second coronavirus wave. So what went wrong? As you keep hearing Biden and Obama and everybody say Trump botched the recovery from coronavirus, listen to this. If you turn on the news in Italy right now, you might be forgiven for thinking you're getting reruns from March. Pictures of COVID-only units, field hospitals being erected, exhausted medics, and coffins are again dominating headlines in Italy as Italy comes to grip with a deadly second wave of COVID. Wednesday, the death toll topped 125 in a 24-hour period. For the first time since May, when Italy was still under a draconian lockdown. What's particularly troubling about the return of COVID in Italy is that the country has done everything experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci have been advising. Masks in public places are compulsory, have been for months. Nightclubs have never reopened. Children who are back at school are regularly tested, strictly social distanced. Italy's health ministry released data. 80.3% of the new infections in Italy occur at home, while only 4.2% come from recreational activities. Wednesday, Italy logged over 15,000 new infections. That would be the equivalent of 90,000 new cases in a single day in the United States, which has never been reached. And it's only getting worse. Authorities are concerned that despite all the best efforts to contain the spread, it simply cannot be stopped. For many, according to the Daily Beast, this week, in Italy, the sacrifices that helped during the first round seem lost now, as though they had been made in vain. But Trump! It's Donald Trump's fault! Nice try, you bunch of liars.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
But the president got him to say that he is going to phase out the oil industry, that he is going to phase out fracking. I think he lost a ton of votes in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Texas because he's on the record. He said these things.
Right. No, he did, and he was not very artful. The real kind of interesting thing about last night was that it appeared in multiple places in the debate that when it came to whatever the topic was, Joe had one point, and he could not get off of that point. There was no nimbleness to his rhetoric to be able to make a follow-up point and then a point that followed that. So he would kind of get stuck in these moments. And when it came to the fracking and the fossil fuels, he even ends up admitting that 11 million jobs will have to leave the economy. It was just a stunning admission at the.
Hey everybody, Dennis Prager here. I have this view that before we're born, we stand in various lines getting different traits. So, for example, in financial acuity, I never stood in that line. I didn't even know the line was there. I didn't know there was a poetry line. It was all different lines. So my guest, Phelan McAleer, was definitely in the courage line, which is unfortunately one of the shorter lines in the world. And he and his terrific wife have made magnificent films. And now he has made this one, ObamaGate, themovie.com. Remember, this is critical that you understand. Not a word in the movie was written by writers. They are all original writings of the characters themselves. James Comey, Peter Strzok, etc. This is a new genre of film which really he has developed, and it's very powerful. So I did want to review this because this was not known to me. It is not surprising, but it is very, very worrisome. So Twitter took down references to your movie. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, they took down any reference to ObamaGate at all. So ObamaGate is now wiped from the Twitter latest feed. And this is a term that was tweeted 3.5 million times in May and June. That's why we called it ObamaGate, was because it was becoming this phrase. And Twitter obviously saw that and have now excised ObamaGate from history. And Instagram have done exactly the same.
So Twitter, Instagram, I want to go through the big four. So Twitter and Instagram, it's gone. And Facebook?
Yep. Facebook have labeled ObamaGate as a QAnon conspiracy theory.
You have nothing to do with QAnon.
I wouldn't recognize a QAnon.
Exactly. I know it's like alt-right. I never met an alt-right. I don't know what it is. I don't know where to find it. I don't know anything about QAnon, and yet that's all the left talks about. It's just this is what they do. They manufacture stuff. So anyway, so that's what. So you can't advertise on Facebook either?
No, it's a QAnon political conspiracy theory. We can't advertise on Twitter either, but Borat can. Borat the movie, which is not political, of course, even though it spends all its time attacking Trump supporters and middle America in that smug elitist way.
I said this years ago. He's the lowest person in Hollywood. This guy. Mm-hmm. He's just he's a vile human being.
He makes fun of Americans' politeness.
That's right. Know? He has contempt for decency. That's correct.
Yeah.
He's a very sick man, morally sick. Yeah. Anyway, and finally, what about YouTube?
Well, so far so good. I think YouTube have been one of the few places where we've had 300,000 views. I suppose now we're getting really popular. Maybe the throttling will come. Maybe but so far so good. I cannot. I don't want to say this too loudly in case they're listening.
Yeah, no. Your point is well taken. I want to understand. If I go to ObamaGateTheMovie.com and I click to see it, what platform am I seeing it through?
YouTube. 300,000. It's free on YouTube. I mean, we felt it was very important that people would get this free. It's amazing. 300,000 people, but it's really, really entertaining. People might think
they're riveting, your films. I couldn't agree with you more, and it's better when I say it because I'm an outsider, so to speak. So one final question: is Barack Obama a character in the film?
Well, he's as Lisa Page said in a text message to Peter Strzok, President Obama wants to know everything we're doing and wants to make sure we have the right people on the job. I'll tell you who also is a character in this. It really should be called Biden-gate as well. Biden was in all these meetings. Biden was the person who said prosecute Flynn under the Logan Act. Biden was there on the 6th of January meeting when they weaponized the FBI and the DOJ against the Trump presidency and started that whole Russia hoax or maintained the whole Russia hoax. This is a thin state and a deep state at the same time, but they're dangerous people and they need to be exposed, and ObamaGate is the place for that.
Okay, ObamaGate the movie. Phelan, God bless you.
Thanks, Dennis.
You're very welcome. It's an honor. This is a very important way to present history. I mean, he's really developed a great idea. He took the Ferguson thing, shook me up. Every word was from the grand jury testimony. And it has stayed with me ever since. For some reason, the actual words of the participants stay with you more than even a well-written script. It's up at DennisPrager.com as well, the connection, in case you forget where that is. So look at this. Let's see here. So my wife just tried this. Let's see. She did a Facebook search for ObamaGate. This is what comes up. This search may be associated with dangerous content. This search may be associated with a dangerous conspiracy movement called QAnon. Experts, I will love this, experts. This is like God said, to the left, experts is the substitute for God. We who are religious have, and thus saith the Lord. And the left, experts. We don't know who they are. What does it mean? It means nothing. It means people that we agree with and put words in their mouths, or they say it, and we don't identify them. Experts say QAnon and the violence it inspires. Really, QAnon? What violence? I don't know anything about QAnon. Truly, my dear friends, I know nothing about it. 99% of conservatives either never heard of it or know nothing about it. But all of a sudden, it's gigantic because the left needs something to lie about. And then they say violence it inspires. This country has just seen an orgy of violence, all from the left. And they write this at Facebook.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So Joe Biden was starting to run out of steam. 45 minutes, an hour, hour 15 into the debate, you could start to see Joe Biden looking at his watch. He called Donald Trump Abraham Lincoln. He said the poor boys instead of the proud boys. And it was becoming more clear that Joe Biden was metaphorically overheating. President Donald Trump saw an opportunity. And Kristen Welker, the moderator, decided to have climate change be the final topic of the debate. Now, why they frame climate change as an existential threat, which it isn't, to our country and to our planet as a primary concern is basically just pandering to the wish list of the most powerful elites that have their whole life so neatly organized financially, they're looking for another thing to try and spend time and try to make themselves feel valuable in life. Climate change is not a pressing issue for families that can't pay the mortgage and cannot get jobs, cannot send their kids to school. And we're happy to build out the entire issue of climate change, environmentalism, and environmentalism has become a religion of the left. But since they decided to have that topic last, Joe Biden was the least alert, the least prepared to interface on this topic. And so this topic started around whether or not climate change was an existential threat. President Donald Trump, I thought, handled it perfectly. Lowest carbon emissions in 30 years, 1 trillion trees planted. He went through the whole list.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We've been told for days now, for weeks now, that this is a Russian influence operation. It's not Hunter Biden's laptop, and this is another version of Russian collusion by the Trump campaign. We now have the evidence. You have the story. The Senate, the Boblinsky is out there. We have the FBI. We have DNI Ratcliffe saying there is no Russian aspect to any of this. John, what should your colleagues, your fellow media moguls and editors-in-chief be doing right now?
They should be going through the same emails I've been going through, and that Peter Schweizer's been going through, and Matt Boyle's been going through, and doing the reporting and finding out what went on in Joe Biden Inc. during the days he was vice president and the immediate afterwards. Remember, this story about China is more than just a family getting rich, though that should be the primary concern we have. The second is that it shows a judgment question. Donald Trump for 20 years has been arguing that China poses an enormous threat to
Yes, everybody, and to Nancy in Harleysville, Pennsylvania. Hi, Dennis Prager here.
Hi, Dennis. It's Nancy, and I am so honored to speak with you.
Thank you.
I called about the woke principles and the ideas, and the problem is if you are accused of those very things, it is an indefensible position. And by making it an indefensible position, they're silencing the people.
What's indefensible, for example?
Well, to be accused of being a white supremacist.
Why is it
or
indefensible?
A racist.
Tell me why it's indefensible. If somebody called you a child molester, would you have a defense?
Well, yes, I would. But
why would you? Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What would your defense be?
I didn't do that.
Okay. Why is that?
But if they
Yeah, go on.
But if they say that you're intrinsically wrong simply because you're a particular color,
right,
or religion,
so you should say, okay. So if it's a man who says it to you, say you are a rapist. All men are rapists. It's a very common thread in early feminism. All intercourse is rape. This is one of the. It was somewhat of an extreme view within feminism, but it was widely respected. I mean, or any woman, you are you are a bad mother. Why is it any different? Why isn't it any different to call you a white supremacist than to say to a mother you're a bad mother? That's what you have to make clear. Yes, go on.
Well, okay, it's not an individual situation.
By the way, forgive me. By the way, wait. You said that because you're white, you're a white supremacist. So if it's a white person saying you're a white supremacist, they are a white supremacist too. So it's a bit odd for a white supremacist to call another white a white supremacist. It should be a compliment.
Well, I mean, the problem is what they're doing these in the schools.
No, I know the problem. I mention it every day, and I agree with you. But don't ever think we don't have a defense. Of course we have a defense. All right. If a white calls you, all right. Anyway, I went through it. We'll go through it over and over because maybe I need to teach people how to respond. I do. I think I do. I will. In the meantime, please help the fighters. Remember, good people are divided between fighters, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. Don't be in the last group. Click on the Alliance Defending Freedom banner and make a donation to the people who supply the free lawyers for liberty in America.